Hi, I'm the True Gamer, giving off my vast knowledge so you may understand games a bit better. Sorry today if I sound a little weird. I've been having a little throat issue, so if I sound weird or kind of have my voice fluctuate a bit, I apologize, but it's just how it is for today. I'm sorry. What I'm not sorry for is doing requests, as today we are doing a Princess Maker game. I know it's not a Princess Maker game in its entirety, but it does fall into the subgenre that is the Princess Maker subgenre. Yeah, a game can also be its own thing, but also be a part of its own subgenre. It's weird. If you're wondering why I'm not doing a Princess Maker game, well, it's purely aesthetics. That is literally it. That is my only reason for touching this particular game. I like how it looks, and I hope you can understand that, as it's really just a me thing, as the other Princess Maker games don't look that appealing graphics-wise, or at least have an art style that appeals to me. But you get my point. As I will actually make a review for those games someday, but I just want to try this game because, again, it just looks nice. Usually I throw a few tidbits about the game, but I really can't. There's no information online about the game and the developers themselves, so I just have to shrug and say, let's just get into the review for Volcano Princess. So the game begins with you and your wife deciding on your child's name. I chose Rosa. Why? Well, no particular reason, I just chose it because. Anyway, time passes and she dies. Why? They don't explain, and get used to that, as for whatever reason, the game has a lot of hard time explaining things, but it weirdly also, like Mindjack, doesn't need it to actually understand what's going on for the most part until the end, but that's a whole other can of worms, which we will get into later, as we will need to begin raising Rosa up properly. How do you do this? Well, by raising her stats. The game has a lot of weird stats, but the way I simplified it is that there are major stats and 4 minor stats. So let me explain. The major stats don't seem that important now, but trust me, later on, they actually matter a lot. Like, for example, how you do in combat and how you'll do when talking to other people. Yeah, it is that important. And it's also important to realize that these minor stats also help too. And if you want to even get the best ending, you are required to do a few certain actions that we will talk about at the end for reasons later. But yeah, that's the idea. You need to just raise her up every month. Yeah, the game is sectioned off into months. I'm not entirely sure why it's months, but whatever. However, before you plan her day out, you can actually move around the town and talk to people to gain friendship points for them for either their story or discount. I recommend you do this every time you can, since it is free points, and if you want to befriend everyone, you'll need to do it every day. While also outside, you can do minor activities to gain more stat points. But why would you need them? Well, simply put, every time your minor stats increase, they also help out with your lessons, meaning that you can get them done way quicker, meaning that you can gain major stat points really quickly. That's pretty much the loop for everything, and while it's simple, it gets a little more complex later on, as you'll have to watch out for lessons costs too, though more times than not you'll never have to worry about that, since it's never really an issue, it just pops up every so often if you're not paying attention. After a year, the game will introduce mini events that take place during the day, which I get the idea of what they're doing, it just, you don't have to worry about them too much. But otherwise, they are a thing. Though this is not to be confused with friendship stuff, which are mini-events, but not these particular mini-events. They're more story mini-events, if anything, rather than character mini-events. Though going back to those mini-events, they can also have events in them where you can do stuff, but weirdly enough, some of them are affected by minor stats that I have no idea how to increase. Yes, there is an entire subsection of stats that I have no idea how they work or function. They are just there, and I have no idea why. For me, it's just a mechanic I can ignore entirely because I don't need them. It didn't help the game because it made it just so confusing as I just didn't want to bother with it. But in any case, let's get back to the plot for a moment. After the mini-event, the story mini-event, on your way home, Rosa follows a bird and, well, she falls off a cliff and so do you. Then cut to 6 years later. Yeah, that's just how it is. The game just totally ignores this and only becomes important way later in the game. Sorta, kinda, not really, it's complicated, I'll explain it near the end. The game begins to actually open up now as your child will be enrolled in a night academy. You will also decide a semi-small route that affects a few certain things and certain endings, but otherwise, it's not important. I chose the night because why not? And ironically, this would actually end up being a good thing for me since it would help me out for, the good ending. Well, the true ending. This is where you'll be more strapped for cash and need a way to earn it for upgrade. For example, one of the things you can do is a job for the bathhouse. And it is not worth it. Like, at all, cause the amount you get is so low that honestly, I thought it was okay at one point, until I quickly realized that, no, it just sucks. The only reason to do it is to gain darkness points, which can lead you to a different ending, but that is a whole other thing that I just didn't do. Plus, also, it's ew, because she's around 12 to 18. So, My point being is, that job is pointless and you don't need to do it, because there's a better job you can do. Going into the forest and fighting demons. Why? Because you can gain a lot of money that way real quickly. Plus the combat system here is, well, basic, it's honestly okay. Like, I feel as though if they expanded upon it in other games, I'm pretty sure they could be fine. So the combat works like this. You can bring up to 2 friends into, well, the forest. In battle, you have 2 energy to start off with, and every turn, you gain 2 more. So it's all about actually finding out what's the best way to proceed. Which is not hard because I later on broke it, but otherwise it's fine. I didn't experiment with the others because usually that would just mean more time into investing into them, meaning this would take longer and longer, and I just didn't want to deal with that. And when I did go back and try to experiment with the others, which actually did take me a while because I had to restart and I didn't actually bother recording it for some reason. God, I suck. Anyway, one of the problem is that one of your members is just going to be a useless member, dead weight. And for the most part, I was using them as a meat shield just to make sure they didn't hit Rosa, because if they hit Rosa, you're dead. You have to restart it all. And ironically, I say that didn't actually make this hard, it's just more random. Because I actually had a winning moveset that just basically made everything easy. And I only mentioned this subsection a little more is because it feeds into every other system a lot more. Essentially, the rewards in it give you a lot more stuff like stat boosting items or equipment, meaning that it can actually go a lot faster next time. Plus also getting items so that you can give them to friends. So you can raise up their friendship rating a lot faster. Which can also help you date them, which, yeah, you can do that. I chose Hackett for this route, though I would have gone with Z if I knew he existed at the time. If you're wondering why him, I got my favorite stereotypes and you got yours. That's all I gotta say. Plus also the problem was that Hackett had something really wrong with him. He was a freaking furry. Despicable. Well, at least it wasn't a goddamn penguin, so I let it slide. But in any case, there is a good selection of people to talk to and individual stories to learn. They all have a problem of being a bit flat. Sure, the roles aren't that big and they're just mostly surface, but you know what I mean? Like, for this type of game, that's fine, in some regard. It has also helped that the game looks very nice, so I can actually more overlook it if anything, since the portraits can give a lot of personality as well. Though I swear on my life, I've seen this art style somewhere. Though ironically, when talking about the characters and going back to that, I need to actually mention something weird about the game I didn't mention. You see, like Mindjack, in my previous review, it suffers from this weird thing where a lot of things aren't just really explained, but ironically you don't need to know it just to understand what's going on here. That is what's also happening here, but to a lesser extent because certain aspects are explained but not fully. Like, I mentioned that stuff with Hackett, but I didn't really explain what's the deal with that. And that's because I really don't know. And I again repeat, none of it really matters that much, and you can look it over, but I really couldn't care less about it. Ironically, I only bring it up because, well, there's not much to talk about. Because they're either short and simple, or just something I just didn't care about, like the backstreet alley where you can hunt people. But gain darkness for some reason, I'm not entirely sure why, but anyway. And as I mentioned near the beginning, there's a rotation for the game. Build stats while doing stuff so you can do whatever you want. See for the most part what these stats do and how they all affect her growth. Because again, as I mentioned before, there are multiple endings seeing how she'll end up. I didn't replay the game just to see more of it because I had my own reasons for doing that, as we'll get into in a moment. And while it is the appeal to replay it, I actually have a hard time replaying stuff nowadays. Unless it's like the most fun for me, or I haven't beaten it. That too. And I want to stress that this game is fun. I like time management games. But the game doesn't push me enough to outright wanting to play it again, which is a real issue for me. Cause once I got over the first hurdle of what to do, everything just went into place, meaning that I didn't actually have to worry about anything anymore. And honestly, I would have just ended the review right now because, well, there wasn't that much to talk about other than some oddities I didn't get. And well, that's more because they're more explaining the true ending. Well, I say it's a true ending when it's really not. It's more like an extended ending where you basically add on more stuff to the ending. And honestly, I'll talk about my feelings on true endings in another video because I know my next video is going to take me a while, so I apologize for that. But that's beside the point. So, how do you get the true ending? Well, remember that forest area? You need to beat all the bosses so that you can gain access to the possibility of getting the true ending. Yeah, even doing all that won't give you true access to the ending, because, okay, I need to explain this. So the game's been mentioning something about degradation and the Owl Princess, who's causing all the monsters and that degradation. And if you're wondering what that is, basically, I'm not entirely sure, but it's apparently people just becoming not humans anymore. They all believe the Owl Princess is sort of the cause of it. Kinda, sorta, not really, it's complicated, we'll get into that. So 2 months after you do that, Lesba, a knight of the house, don't worry about it, it's sort of important, but again, don't worry about it, will ask for your help to capture her. Okay, and after a few fights you find her and easily defeat her. Then the other shoe drops and she's actually evil. What a shock. Actually, I was a little shocked and confused. And that's because it requires even more explanations of stuff that wasn't really important. So all the way into the beginning, there was a hero called Esbel. Get it? Esbel, Lesba. It's an anagram. Anyway, who? Well, apparently he transferred himself into Rosa's twin. Wait, what? Yeah, apparently the game came out of nowhere and just wanted to have that plot point in all of a sudden. Like, they sorta hint at it with the younger Rosa dreams, but she only appears a few times and even then not really that important. And the game makes no attempt to actually explain what the hell is going on. Or even how this works, as Lesba is older and has different features altogether. It gets even more weird when you can actually date Lesba. Yeah, ugh. And honestly, dealing with that process of trying to get this true ending, because let me tell you, you need to do this 2 months in advance, or at least have 2 months in advance that are free. Which I couldn't because there weren't a lot of chances and the randomness of the battles at times. So I had little care about what was going on anymore. And it gets even more confusing as after beating her, which, by the way, you can possibly lose and have to redo it again. Yeah, that's fun. Anyway, the game then pulls a few more reveals, with the Owl Princess being the Volcano Goddess and Rosa's mother. And the young Rosa in the dreams is actually the dead sister's soul, or what's left of it. I just don't care enough anymore because it's just so what the fuck. Anyway, the Owl Princess then killed Lesba. Does it ever matter, like, at all? Because it might not even be Aspel anymore. The game is really weird about this. And the game will continue on unless you did like I did, where I did it at the very end. And everyone just lives happily ever after. Yep. This game, at the end of the day, is fine. Nothing that's really bad, but nothing that really made it stellar. I best described this to a friend of mine way earlier. It's a good game, I just don't want to ever play it again. And I feel like that is a good way to describe this game. Next time we will do the 4 Warriors of Light. Final Fantasy, or Bravely Default Zero. Yeah, that's what we're calling it. Anyway, if you liked today's video, please comment below. Tell me what I did wrong. Did I do anything right? Do I ever do anything right? Anyway, hope you liked it. See you next time.